All right, so one of my important, formative experiences was having the opportunity to play in Benny Goodman's sextet, uh, and it was it was really exciting from the start. And the thing for me, especially my phobia of like pressure of reading something, or everything was just had arrangements, and it was like, you know, learn it on the spot. And there were even a few tunes that, like Here's That Rainy Day, I was kind of like faking my way on the first couple of times that we did it, but I was good at faking that stuff till I learned it. Um, but it wasn't all. It was like a total of about 5 years. But I did get a lot of the dates. Uh, the first call was like in 1977, and then there wasn't anything for a while. But it kind of peaked out around 1982, and we had this really interesting tour of Europe, uh, because Benny was famous for like mixing and matching, hiring and firing musicians, which is another thing that I basically, for the most part, I didn't get replaced by anybody for the better part of those 5 years, and a lot of other, I saw a lot of other chairs get changed around, and so I guess he liked me, and it was just playing in front of those large audiences to people that were just like devoted to him. It was it was just very, very intense. And to have it be really high level musicians, both in the rhythm section and the horns. Sometimes my friend Scott Hamilton was on those gigs. My first one, he wasn't. It was Buddy Tate, the tenor player, was on it. And different, heavyweight famous people. My first date, the drummer was Connie Kay from the Modern Jazz Quartet. The bass player was Major Holly. Um, through the thing, but later in the period of it, Benny basically had assembled a band that, because he had used different of us at different times, but we did wound up doing a lot of work in this European tour with a band that was kind of it was a lot of the members of Scott Hamilton's working group. So it was John Bunch on piano, who was another person who kept his job for many, many years with Benny without any, problems with Benny. Uh, John Bunch on piano, myself on guitar, Scott playing tenor. Uh, the bass player that was my friend, and the bass player for some years with Scott Hamilton's group, Phil Flanagan, and and then the great Mel Lewis on drums. And that was a get-off band to play with. And for some of that period, Benny was really, it was like there were, for half a minute, me and Phil were like Benny's boys. He was really liking us. And plus he was he was a difficult personality. He tended to get in feuds with people. So some of this whole like European tour, half the set would be like Benny playing just trio with me and the bass player, in front of 2,000 people, or whatever, 20,000 people, and it was just really exciting. And I'm glad I was so young and full of confidence, because that kind of thing, and just but there was something about like the raw adrenaline of it, because I played for my skills at the time. I think I played fairly well, and you can go see some of it on YouTube. Um, but and I look about 12 on some of the things, but it was very exciting. He was a famously difficult person to get on with. I got on with him pretty well, and to the point where he had this towards the end of the run of the whole sextet existing. Um, it at the end of, I think it was the end of '82 into '83, or the end of '83, he had a heart problem and had to lay off and then have a pacemaker put in and stuff. And then he was recuperating, but he was so diligent about practicing. He always, you know, he practiced on the road. You know, this is Benny Goodman, and he's practicing in his hotel room. You know, unlike myself, you know, I didn't do so much of that. You know, but he, when he was recuperating, he would have me come over to his apartment and play with him, which, you know, it was something. Actually, one thing I want to say is the reason I have this guitar is really because of Benny Goodman, because you know, I was doing great with him. You know, it's like that whole really exciting, glorious, you know, touring in summer of 1982. And then right at the end of that, we were on some concert, and he got really strange with me and there's this thing where he'd give you the wave, which means lay out till further notice. And if he wanted to mess with people's heads, he'd do that, you know, for like half the set. And I had never gotten that from him. And then I don't know, at some point I met with him, and he said, you know, you need to get a new guitar. And I was so like young and entitled, I was like, what do you mean? That costs $1,000 or something, you know? And I also kind of in my heart, I kind of thought, well, you should buy me a new guitar. You're the millionaire here, you know? But he said, you know, it sounds great on the solos, but you know, I need something more crisp on the rhythm, you know, like Alan Roos, something like that. You know, that was one of the great rhythm guitarists of the year, you know, 40s or whatever. And I was like, initially I was like, yeah, whatever. And then I showed up at the next concert with the same guitar. I guess, yeah, he had said, he complained about the guitar, and then I showed up at this concert, and that's when he started like telling me to lay out. And then that's when I got scared. And the guy in the office called me. He said, man, you better do something. He's telling me to go sound Bucky Pizzarelli or whoever for the following dates that you've already been given. And I was like, and so I went to 48th Street in New York, which was like the big guitar store area there and musical pawn shops and stuff. And I had a friend working in one of them, and he found this axe originally. And then I had another date like at Yale University with Benny, and I didn't even have a pickup for it yet, and I just played it acoustically through a mic. But Benny like totally approved, and he said, "Yeah, it sounds good. Put a pickup on it. It'd be a bitch, you know." And then, but I really thought I just didn't know what a favor he had done for me, because, you know, I bought this guitar 30 plus years ago for like $1,200 or something like that. So, and I'm not a big guitar collector or changer guy. You know, this has been my main axe, you know, and you know, I've had a few other guitars, but this is my main guitar. But yeah, and then the Benny thing ended because it was partly his health thing, but then these sort of very powerful people decided what he really should do is reform the big band. And then at the time, he tried to get a lot of us from Scott Hamilton's band to like drop everything and make these dates with him. And we had tours and commitments and stuff, and we knew that if we said no, that would be the end of us, and it kind of was. Although, again, because of his tendency to hire and fire people, I wound up only by coincidence doing his very last concert date in 1986, I think it was, and it was kind of a nightmare for me because of my anxieties about my reading, and I'm okay reading chord charts, but reading like the original Fletcher Henderson chord charts with every indication, with a guy who can hear like every speck of everything that's going on, you know, I was like, the rehearsals were making me nervous. The sound check made me even more nervous. But somehow, like the way it does sometimes in performance, the concert was fine, and I've heard it recorded. It's okay, but it's too bad that was my last date with Benny, because it was only very shortly after that he died. But it's a really fond memory, the whole business, and that's about it.